Am I on? Great. Okay, so it's Friday, and we thought, let's not wait until the end of this session to do our demonstration. So Pragnesh and Alex will man the booth here and walk us through. So we're going to focus on cloud native here for a bit. And if you remember, again, it's about microservices, and so we really have to get into the code here by decomposing the legacy app. One common approach is to use domain-driven design, of course, and that typically might happen in event storming workshops. And that's where we get an opportunity to isolate and free business logic from a large code base. And so vFunction is going to help us here to automate this domain-driven design. And so for our demo approach, vFunction is going to dynamically observe our order management system, OMS. It'll give us an initial recommendation for domain-driven design, and then we will extract this service from a Java monolith. Now, to maximize our time here, we have decoupled our build and deploy step, which is actually consistent with GitOps philosophy. And so much of the build has already occurred. We've taken that extracted code. We've done some minor refactoring to Java Spring Boot. We've containerized, and that image is available to us in our repository. So what you'll see here is really the deployment step using Argo CD, open source tooling graduated in the CNCF registry. Argo has already been bootstrapped into our EKS cluster from our Blueprints core modules. And then finally, Refactor Spaces is providing that Strangler Fig environment for us. It'll transparently allow us to reroute this new service traffic from this common ingress that's coming in from API Gateway, all behind the scenes. Gentlemen?
Let's get into action. Can you hear me? Yeah, let's get into actions. Okay. So this is the vFunction. It's pointing to currently into OMS, is Order Management Systems, right? And there's multiple steps, we'll go through that. So first is vFunction's two core capabilities, architecture observability and the refactor engine. So architecture observability is focusing on identifying the key domain from the existing applications, and refactor engine specifically help to extract the microservices, right? So two core capabilities, excellent. First step is always start with the learning. This is AI-based learning. So when vFunctions point to the applications, it will learn that what is happening behind the team. And once learning is completed, vFunctions presented a great analysis about finding what is existing domain-driven design. In this case specifically, this domain-driven design is focused on the order management system, right? And let's explore what is this inside. The first is about understanding is what is this circle. So this circle is focused on the functional domain, right? So each circle will represent the functional domain within the applications. And in this case, you have the inventory, order, and product domains. And the color of this domain is specifically designed how this domain is exclusively within that, right? And within each domains, you have the software component, right? So if you imagine that each applications, how it designed is, you have the software components in the classes, you have the databases, as well as other API calls specifically. And each resources has a domain-specific things, database transactions, API call, and the messaging. You can see from that vFunction, it clearly provide all information around that. Right? And as I mentioned earlier, you also want to identify what is my entry points, how my internal applications business flow is going around within the applications. And this is, you can see whole detailed trees that's provided within the applications. Now, another important aspect of tool is dependency, right? Now, between the domain, there's a line, it represents the dependencies between the domain, right? So that is another important aspect of that when you do the discovery of the domain-driven design, what is the application's dependency within that? Another important aspect is about identify the domain exclusivity, how exclusive my domain is. It's like, what is the quality of my domain? And that domain exclusivity is specifically defined by the colors. So red color represent the lower exclusive. My domain is very poor. The green color represent my domain is very highly exclusive. It's in a good conditions of the, I will say. Now from that you can see that what is the exclusivity specifically for the each domain. Right. Now next phase is once you understand what is inside the applications, vFunctions, another important aspect of that is identify the recommendation, provide the recommendations, right? It's about reducing the technical depth. So in my architecture, in this specific applications, how do I actually reduce my technical depth? And there's a two aspect of that, identify any high depth class. So what is my class is highly dependence on that. Second important aspect of that is about the dead code. In your legacy application, there may be code is never executed or maybe decommissions, right? Which is important from the identify. So this to the high depth class functionality will identify and provided this from this example, you can see the specific class is highly dependent. The recommendation here is to how do you decompose that applications. Dead code, again, as mentioned, identify the dead code as well. So from this application, the vFunction presented a dead code. If you are not happy, you can remove that dead code. The next thing is about, I want to understand my resource requirement within that. And another aspect of that, when you're doing the microservices or decomposition, that what about the database, right, is very important. Are you also extracting the database? Are you also moving the database with that, or keep your database with you? So vFunction clearly identify that how exclusively, how my database dependency within my applications. And this is one of the example of that. It will also show you on a specific area that this is my domains, what are my database, what are my resources dependence on that. Right? So there's another great feature of that. So it will give you end-to-end insight with your applications, your dependencies, your domain dependency, functional dependency, and the database dependency. Now, another important aspect is that once you discover how my applications is highly dependent, you want to extract some of the microservices. Now here is specifically, I want to, in this example demo, we had the order management system, and I want to extract the order management out of my domain design, right? So how do I do that? Before that, I also want to improve my architecture capabilities as well. Like I want to reduce my depth. So what I'll do it. So vFunctions provide a capability out of the box. So here, if you see that I want to reduce the dependency or reduce exclusivity or improve the exclusivity around that. So what I can do is with the vFunctions on the screen, I can merge two domain. That's why I can improve the exclusivity of that. Right? So here you can see my domain is now highly exclusive. So all red turn into the green. Simple things. So we have completed for order management the domain-driven design. So now I'm ready to extract. So again, another feature of the domain vFunction is provide you the capability to extract the specific domain. And this area is done by extract domain service. What I'll do is here is identify the domains I want to extract, click that and save it. Now, when I extract the confirmations or domains, I need to identify what is my target, where I want to run. This application at the moment is running on the Java, but my target application I want to run that microservices is on the Spring Boot in this case. The second thing is what I need when I extract the microservices, I also need a dependencies, common class library as well, right? And other thing is API endpoint to communicate with my microservices. And so seamlessly, vFunction does this seamlessly, right? You can extract the domain out of that. You can see that. Another things, when you want to extract, vFunction also provide a code copy utility out of the box thing. So with the code copy utility, you can point to that and seamlessly extract your domain out of that. Now let's move to my development environment. So this is my development environment looks like. So what we have done, like with the vFunctions, we identify the domains, identify domain, extract it for which domains I want to interested in. Now I'm in my workstation environment. You can see here all my files, original source code is here. I also downloaded my code copy utility. Now, if I list what is my current code looks like, this is my original source code. With vFunction utility, I can extract the service specification file, and my domain is ready to use now. And also extract REST API as I mentioned earlier, and that now what we have done is this one, out of these things, I have my domain device available. So what we have done so far is just a visual representation is about this domain-driven design from our OMS. We have extracted order management services. So what is the next step? Once I have my source code, I can onboard this source code to my DevOps practices. So we can push the code to my source code repository, build it, create image is in my available. And now I invite Alex to walk us through focus on the CD part. So we understand based on the code, I trigger my CI, continuous integration. Now let's look into actions about the CD. Thank you, Alex.
That's great, thank you, Pragnesh. Let's just get this demo up and we will be on our way. So what we want to do first is we've talked about EKS blueprints, we've talked about some tools like Argo CD. I want to kind of see them in action. So what we have in Cloud9 here is we have our workloads repository. So it's a repository which has the Kubernetes manifest files in. So a really, really easy way for us to deploy workloads into our Kubernetes cluster that's been created by Amazon EKS blueprints. So what we can see in here is we've got set up the 3 manifest files we need inside our team that's separate to the platform team. So keep everything nice and isolated. And these manifest files are allowing us to specify resource requirements, where the Docker image is, etc. So what we can do is we want to have a look at Argo CD in its current state. So we can see here we've got our 3 manifest files deployed into resources as EKS, in our EKS cluster. So we can see our service, our deployment, and our ingress. So at this point, this is just the extracted order controller that we saw in the vFunction demo. So what we're going to do is, so we can come back to this and see that Argo CD is live and functional and working, I'm going to, in Cloud9, just add another example application in here. So this is a different app. So we're just going to take this, pop it in here, and then we will commit and push that. So we should have our 3 new files we've created here for our example application. Okay, so we'll come back to that one in a little bit later. So what we're going to do now is we've talked about refactor spaces and how refactor spaces can help you to implement the strangler fig pattern when you're modernizing an application. So if we head over to refactor spaces now, what we will be able to see is we've got an environment set up for our demo today. I'm assuming this is large enough for everybody as well. We've got an application set up, and we currently have 2 routes active. So we have one route which is going to our legacy application, which is the monolith, and one route which is going to our decomposed order controller. So what we're going to do is we're going to deactivate the order controller to start with. So once this is deactivated, what's happening in the background is it's doing things like updating API gateway, closing that route off, so all the traffic will then be directed to the legacy monolith. What we then want to do is have a bit of a look at some of the requests that we can send and see how we can direct traffic to different areas with the with refactor spaces. So we can send this first request in here. So this is getting an order. The URL it's going through is the URL of the API gateway that sits inside refactor spaces. And what I want to look at here is, for demonstration purposes, on the decomposed order service, we've added a custom header so we can show you when it's changed over. So this at the moment is hitting the monolith. We haven't got this extra header in here. The request is returning. We can make another request. Again, still going to monolith. This is the inventory controller, but post cutover, that will still remain with the monolith. So what we can then do is we can then go back into refactor spaces. We can activate our route. So now what this is doing the inverse of what we've just done. So it's taking all the traffic that was going to the monolith destined for /order, and it will now be sending it, rather than going to our monolith service, it's sending it to our order controller service, which is deployed in EKS blueprints. So if we now head back over to Postman and we create an order, this time the request we're sending is going to /order, it's a post request, so we should find what comes back is this here. So we've got this extra header in here that we've created already. So this time it's coming from our order controller. Hopefully it's just about large enough to see. But that's kind of the idea of being able to incrementally modernize, send some traffic over to one service while still retaining this legacy monolith and implementing that strangler fig pattern. And just to prove that everything isn't going to the microservice, we can do another request to /inventory and see that that header isn't there because it's coming from the monolith. So just to finish up this live demo, we can go back now to Argo CD, and if we refresh this, what we will see is we've now got our new service, deployment, and ingress created from the commit and the push I did for that example application. So I can take this one here, and we've got our example app that's been deployed through Argo CD. And that concludes our live demo.
Thank you, Alex. That works finally, that's good. So what we just saw is how AWS service and ISV partner tool can help to accelerate the modernization, right? That's very important. That's a synergy that we just saw.